Lena, a young stewardess from Frankfurt, stepped off the plane, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. She had traveled the world, seen countless cities from the windows of airplanes, but Santiago was different. This was not just another destination, it was a place that held the promise of love and adventure. As she walked into the vibrant chaos of Santiago, the city's energy hit her like a wave. The streets were alive with people, each one seemingly on a mission, their faces a tapestry of stories waiting to be told. The market stalls overflowed with colorful fruits and vegetables, the air filled with the sounds of haggling vendors and the laughter of children. The air, thick with the scent of jasmine and exhaust fumes, buzzed with a nervous energy. It was a stark contrast to the sterile calm of the airplane cabins she was used to. Here, life was raw and unfiltered, every moment a sensory overload. She had grown accustomed to the sterile calm of airplanes, the predictable rhythm of international flights, the hum of the engines, the polite smiles of passengers, the routine safety demonstrations. It was a world of order and control. Chile, however, throbbed with a raw, untamed beauty that both captivated and unsettled her. The city was framed by towering mountains, their peaks often shrouded in mist, and the streets were a canvas of vibrant murals that told stories of struggle and hope. She was here for love. Daniel, her Daniel, with his fiery eyes and even fierier ideals, painted the streets of Santiago with his passion for social justice. He was a force of nature, a whirlwind of energy and conviction. Daniel was a student activist, a whirlwind of energy fighting for a more equitable Chile. His voice was a beacon for many, a call to action that resonated deeply with those who longed for change. He spoke of Allende's vision of a socialist utopia, his words tumbling over each other in his haste to create a better world. His speeches were electrifying, each one a rallying cry that ignited the hearts of his listeners. He spoke of Allende's vision of a socialist utopia, his words tumbling over each other in his haste to create a better world. His passion was infectious, and Lena found herself drawn into his world, captivated by his dreams and his determination. Lena, raised in the pragmatic heart of Germany, found herself swept away by his idealism. She had always been practical, grounded in reality, but Daniel's vision of a better world made her believe in the impossible. In his arms, she glimpsed a world tinted pink, the color of the socialist posters plastered across the city, the color of hope. They spent their days exploring cobblestone streets, their laughter echoing in ancient plazas. Every corner of the city seemed to hold a new adventure, a new story waiting to be discovered. They spent their days exploring cobblestone streets, their laughter echoing in ancient plazas. The city was a labyrinth of history and culture, each street a chapter in a story that spanned centuries. They wandered hand in hand, discovering hidden cafes and bustling markets, their love growing with each shared experience. They danced in crowded pinas, the music a vibrant tapestry of Andean flutes and pounding drums. The nights were filled with music and laughter, the rhythm of the city pulsing through their veins. Lena felt a connection to the people and the culture that she had never experienced before. Lena, for the first time, felt truly alive, her heart thrumming with a love as intoxicating as the Chilean wine they shared under the star-dusted sky. The nights were magical, the sky a canvas of stars that seemed to mirror the spark in their eyes. They would sit for hours talking about their dreams and their fears, their hopes for the future. But beneath the surface of their idyllic life, a current of unease stirred. The newspapers screamed of unrest, of political divisions cracking the country's fragile peace. The headlines were a stark reminder that their love existed in a world fraught with tension and uncertainty. The newspapers screamed of unrest, of political divisions cracking the country's fragile peace. The city, with all its beauty and vibrancy, was also a place of conflict and struggle. The walls were covered in political graffiti, each slogan a testament to the deep divisions that ran through the heart of Chilean society. Daniel, his brow often furrowed, spoke of growing threats from the opposition, of whispers of a military coup. His passion for change was matched by his fear for the future, a fear that he tried to hide but that Lena could see in his eyes. Lena, clinging to their happiness, brushed aside his worries, choosing to believe in the enduring power of their love, a beacon in the gathering storm. She held on to the hope that their love could weather any storm, that it could be a light in the darkness. But as the tension in the city grew, so did the shadow over their future, and Lena couldn't help but wonder if love would be enough to see them through. The air grew heavy, thick with apprehension. It was as if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for an inevitable storm. The once bustling streets were now eerily silent, the usual hum of life replaced by an oppressive stillness. Gone was the carefree laughter, replaced by hushed conversations and furtive glances over shoulders. People moved like shadows, their faces etched with worry, their voices barely above a whisper. The sense of community that once bound them together was now fractured by fear and suspicion. The vibrant posters that once adorned the city walls were torn down, replaced by stark military pronouncements. The colorful murals that celebrated life and freedom were now covered by grim warnings and decrees. The city's soul seemed to be slowly eroding, replaced by a cold, unfeeling presence. Fear, like a noxious gas, seeped into their lives. It was in the air they breathed, the water they drank, the very fabric of their existence. Every creak of a floorboard, every distant shout, sent shivers down their spines. The once familiar cityscape now seemed alien and hostile. Daniel, his usual exuberance dimmed, moved with a quiet urgency. His eyes, once bright with dreams, were now clouded with worry. He walked the streets with a purpose, but his steps were heavy, burdened by the weight of the unknown. He spoke of going into hiding, of protecting himself and Lena from the storm he knew was coming. His voice, usually filled with hope, was now tinged with a desperation that Lena had never heard before. They made plans in hushed tones, their future uncertain and fraught with danger. Lena, her heart a knot of dread, clung to his side, her fear a palpable presence in their tiny apartment. She tried to be strong, but the weight of their situation was crushing. Every moment felt like a countdown to an inevitable disaster. One evening, the air crackled with a new kind of tension. The sky, dark and foreboding, seemed to mirror the turmoil in their hearts. The city was on edge, every sound amplified, every shadow a potential threat. Gunfire erupted in the distance, shattering the evening calm. The sharp cracks echoed through the streets, a stark reminder of the violence that was now a part of their reality. People flinched, their faces pale with fear as the sounds of conflict drew closer. The radio, a frantic voice spewing pronouncements, confirmed their worst fears. The military had seized control. The voice crackled with urgency, delivering news that sent chills down their spines. The world they knew was slipping away, replaced by a harsh new reality. A curfew was imposed. The city plunged into darkness. The once vibrant nightlife was snuffed out, replaced by an eerie silence. Streetlights flickered and died, leaving the city in a shroud of darkness. The streets, once filled with life, were now deserted and foreboding. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through Lena's heart. It was a constant companion, gnawing at her resolve. Every sound, every shadow seemed to hold a new threat. She clutched her chest, trying to steady her breathing, but the fear was relentless. She clung to Daniel, his familiar scent a small comfort in the encroaching darkness. His presence was a lifeline, a reminder that she was not alone in this nightmare. They held each other tightly, drawing strength from their shared fear and determination. They huddled together, listening to the rumble of tanks and the staccato bursts of gunfire echoing through the streets. The sounds of war were all around them, a constant reminder of the danger they faced. Every explosion, every gunshot, was a stark reminder of the fragility of their existence. Their world, once filled with the promise of a shared future, was crumbling around them. The dreams they had built together were now overshadowed by the harsh reality of their situation. They looked out at the city, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that nothing would ever be the same again. The world outside their window descended into chaos. The once bustling streets, filled with the hum of daily life, were now overrun with the sounds of civil unrest. People clashed with authorities, their voices raised in desperate cries for justice and change. The air was thick with tension, a palpable sense of fear and uncertainty hanging over the city like a dark cloud. The sky, once a brilliant blue, was choked with black smoke billowing from the presidential palace. The seat of power, now a symbol of destruction and despair, stood as a stark reminder of the turmoil that had engulfed the nation. Flames licked at the edges of the grand building, sending plumes of smoke spiraling into the heavens, blotting out the sun and casting a shadow over the land. The air vibrated with the roar of fighter jets and the terrifying rattle of gunfire. The once peaceful skies were now a battleground, with military jets streaking across the horizon, their engines screaming a warning to all below. On the ground, the staccato bursts of gunfire echoed through the streets, a grim soundtrack to the unfolding chaos. The city had become a war zone, its residents caught in the crossfire of a conflict they could scarcely comprehend. Their haven, once a sanctuary, felt terrifyingly vulnerable. The The walls that had once provided comfort and security now seemed paper-thin, unable to keep out the horrors unfolding just beyond their doorstep. Lena and Daniel clung to each other, their eyes wide with fear as they watched the world they knew unravel before them. The sense of safety they had taken for granted was shattered, replaced by a gnawing dread that gnawed at their hearts. Days blurred into a terrifying montage of fear and uncertainty. Each sunrise brought with it new challenges, new threats, and the constant question of whether they would survive to see another day. The faces of their neighbors, once familiar and friendly, were now etched with worry and suspicion. Trust was a luxury they could no longer afford, as the lines between friend and foe became increasingly blurred. Food became scarce, water even more so. The once well-stocked shelves of the local grocery store were now barren, stripped clean by desperate hands. People fought over the few remaining scraps, their survival instincts kicking in as the situation grew more dire. Water, too, was a precious commodity, with every drop carefully rationed and guarded. The basic necessities of life had become rare treasures, their absence a constant reminder of the fragility of their existence. They subsisted on stale bread and whispers of hope, their dreams of a better future sustaining them through the darkest of times. Each meager meal was a testament to their resilience, a small victory in the face of overwhelming odds. They found solace in each other's company, drawing strength from their shared determination to survive. Even in the dim light of their makeshift refuge, their eyes held a glimmer of hope, a spark that refused to be extinguished, their dreams of a shared future fading with each passing hour. The plans they had made, the life they had envisioned, seemed to slip further and further out of reach. The uncertainty of their situation weighed heavily on their minds, casting a shadow over their once bright aspirations. Yet, despite the growing darkness, they held on to each other, their bond a beacon of light in an otherwise bleak landscape. The radio, their only link to the outside world, spoke of mass arrests, of stadiums transformed into makeshift prisons. The crackling voice on the other end of the broadcast painted a grim picture of the world beyond their walls. News of friends and loved ones being taken away, of entire communities being uprooted and displaced, filled them with a sense of dread. The radio was both a lifeline and a source of torment, its updates a constant reminder of the peril they faced. Stadiums transformed into makeshift prisons, the very places that had once been filled with cheers and celebrations were now sites of despair and suffering. Thousands of people, stripped of their freedom and dignity, were herded into these impromptu detention centers, their fates uncertain. The images of these makeshift prisons haunted Lena and Daniel, a stark reminder of the ever-present danger that loomed over them. Then, one morning, the inevitable arrived. The early light of dawn cast long shadows across their small apartment, the air thick with an ominous tension. They had known this day would come, had felt its approach like a storm on the horizon, yet when it finally arrived, they were still unprepared for the reality of it. The sense of foreboding that had hung over them for so long now crystallized into a moment of stark terror. The pounding on the door, brutal and insistent, shattered their fragile peace. The sound reverberated through the apartment, each knock a hammer blow to their already frayed nerves. Lena and Daniel exchanged a look of pure fear, their hearts racing as the door shook under the force of the blows. The thin barrier between them and the outside world was about to be breached, and they knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Armed men, their faces contorted with a terrifying blend of boredom and brutality, stormed into their apartment, tearing apart their lives with callous efficiency. The soldiers moved with practiced ease, their actions swift and merciless. They upended furniture, rifled through personal belongings, and barked orders with a chilling detachment. Lena and Daniel could do nothing but watch as their home, their sanctuary, was violated and destroyed before their eyes. Lena and Daniel were herded onto a crowded truck, their pleas for mercy swallowed by the roar of the engine and the sobs of their fellow prisoners. The truck was a metal cage, its confines filled with the sounds of despair and desperation. As they were pushed and jostled into the cramped space, they clung to each other, their only source of comfort in a world gone mad. Their pleas for mercy swallowed by the roar of the engine and the sobs of their fellow prisoners. The noise was deafening, a cacophony of human suffering that drowned out any hope of reason or compassion. The truck lurched forward, its heavy wheels grinding against the pavement, carrying them away from everything they had ever known. As the truck lurched through the streets, Lena caught a glimpse of Daniel, his face pale but resolute. Despite the fear that gripped them both, There was a steely determination in his eyes, a silent vow to protect her no matter the cost. His presence was a lifeline, a reminder that they were not alone in this nightmare. He squeezed her hand, his touch a silent promise amidst the chaos. In that simple gesture, Lena found the strength to keep going, to face whatever horrors lay ahead. Their bond, forged in love and tested by adversity, was unbreakable. It was a beacon of hope in the darkest of times, a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable hardship, they still had each other. They were thrown into the belly of the beast, their fate uncertain, their love their only shield against the encroaching darkness. The prison loomed before them, a fortress of despair that threatened to swallow them whole. Yet, as they stepped into the unknown, they held on to the one thing that could never be taken from them, their love for each other. It was their anchor, their guiding light, and their greatest weapon against the darkness that sought to consume them.